Welcome to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. It is Monday, September 29th, and we are just 36 days away from this all important New York City mayoral election. And the race has changed. Let's get right to the big news. Joining me now is Morgan McKay, a political reporter for Fox 5 New York. Morgan, you and I were on the air yesterday together because what happened?
I think this came not really as a surprise to anyone. I think the only thing that was a surprise was really how it happened. We had been hearing for weeks now that Mayor Eric Adams was considering dropping out of the race. And earlier this month, even, he had been discussing with business leaders saying that he was going to be taking a poll to decide whether or not he was going to drop out before
Right.
October 1st. His spokesman confirmed that that's what he was talking about. But then 2 days later, Adams came out and said, that's actually not true. I'm only doing a poll to determine messaging. I'm in this race. So he's been doing this back and forth for weeks now, but it's finally over this weekend. Yesterday, he said that he's officially out of the race and he's suspending his campaign.
Let's take a listen to some of he released a 9-minute video. Let's just listen to a small part of it.
Despite all we've achieved, I cannot continue my re-election campaign. The constant media speculation about my future and the campaign finance board's decision to withhold millions of dollars have undermined my ability to raise the funds needed for a serious campaign.
Constant media speculation. Morgan, he's talking about us. He's talking about reporters and people like us constantly asking the question because it was constantly being raised. What had you been hearing yesterday, though? I know my Sunday was interrupted. What were you hearing up until the moment that he actually released that video?
So to your point there, I think him blaming the media a little bit, he was frustrated at the media for weeks now, saying that how dare the media report that he's having these private conversations talking about dropping out of the race, saying, he's the one that should be able to say when exactly he drops out. But yesterday, I received a phone call at around 11 a.m. that this was probably going to be the day. I was actually at a wedding upstate, so got in the car and traveled back very quickly as fast as I could to report on this. But yeah, it's we had heard that it was going to be happening likely before October 1st. I didn't quite expect it to be yesterday until yesterday morning. And then we heard, the 1 p.m. video announcement. Now, as far as what's next, he's going to have to take questions eventually. He's trying to right now duck the press a little bit. His campaign spokesperson said that he asked the media to respect this time and to not pepper him with questions. And, usually as somebody in the media, as that's usually reserved for people who are maybe going through a death in the family or something like that. But this was, a little, I guess, caught us at least off guard because he is going to have to answer questions. Just when that is, it's up in the air right now.
Yeah, because he's not just a candidate. He's the sitting mayor. And so he is going to have to answer some of those questions. That's not how this works. So what stood out to you in his very long announcement, Morgan?
Three things, really. One was what he blamed it on, which you mentioned right there, the media. He also blamed a little bit about his corruption case. You'll remember last September, he was indicted on 5 charges, including bribery and soliciting illegal campaign donations. And those charges were dropped by the Trump administration earlier this year, but not before. 4 of his deputy mayors resigned. There were prosecutors in the U.S. Attorney's Office that resigned. And the judge even said at the time that this smelled like a bargain. So that was all going on at the time. And he said that New Yorkers have had a hard time trusting him again since that criminal indictment. So he did sort of talk about it and put that blame there. He also, though, I guess for me, 2 things that I want answered that I feel like weren't answered in that video is why exactly now? I know that October, they really ramp up the campaigns. He also blamed the campaign finance board, I'll mention. And apparently, according to his campaign, he is going to be continuing to fight to get those public matching funds that he was denied because of his corruption case. Not exactly sure why. Hopefully, we'll get more answers from him eventually.
Yeah.
But also just what's next for him. Did he get offered a job? Was there pressure for him to battle out of the race? And what exactly was tied to him bowing out at this moment?
Yeah, that all has to come out. I mean, we all, we in the press, but more importantly, New Yorkers deserve to know why and how this all happened. What's been the reaction from Zohran Mamdani, the frontrunner, whom Adams seemed to be referencing at the end of that announcement? He sort of gave a warning about.
So Zohran Mamdani today came out and said that nothing's changed. He said that it doesn't matter who's on the ballot, it's what is on the ballot, which is meaning his affordability agenda, his platform. He says his ideas are the ones that's going to stand the test of time. It's what voters are going to be supporting, not necessarily candidates. Now,
Mhm.
I will mention that Adams was polling at about 8 to 9% in the polls. So where his numbers go, it's a little uncertain. I know that Cuomo right now is trying to tell donors and his supporters that all these votes are going to go to him, but that's not necessarily the case. It could likely be split between Cuomo, Mamdani, and Curtis Lewa. And then there's
Sure.
also a good chunk who might just stay home.
Yeah. Okay, Morgan, stay right there. I've got more questions for you after the break. More Battleground NYC. The fight for your vote. We'll be right back. We're back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. And joining me is Morgan McKay, political reporter for Fox 5 New York. Morgan, Curtis Lewa, the Republican candidate, also reacted to the news. What did he have to say?
So he said that he never really trusted Adams to begin with. He said that he warned New Yorkers last time that he ran, which was 4 years ago, saying that Adams would be caught up in some sort of corruption. So he definitely took the opportunity to criticize Adams while he was down, for sure. But Curtis Lewa, though, also saying that he's not going to be bowing out of the race. If you talk to a lot of experts, they say that Curtis Lewa was really the one you kind of wanted to get out because he's polling quite a bit higher than Adams in most of the polls. But Curtis Lewa says he's not going anywhere and you can't drag him out of the race. And he said he's also gotten about 7 different offers totaling about $10 million from people trying to get him out of the race. But he says he's in it until the end.
Any word on whom Adams may endorse? We know one of his advisors is going to go help the Cuomo campaign now. Is that maybe a indication of what's about to happen?
Yeah, I talked to Frank Carone earlier today, and he said Frank Carone is Adams' longtime confidant, political advisor, lieutenant, going back decades. And he said that he's going to be deciding this week whether or not to either join Cuomo's campaign or to join a super PAC supporting Cuomo.
Okay.
But it's really unclear right now whether or not Adams will also get on board and endorse Cuomo. They have a lot of bad blood. Just a few weeks ago, Adams called Cuomo a snake and a liar. He also apparently put in his video that was released yesterday some criticism of Cuomo that was actually cut out of the final product, which could maybe hint that he could be endorsing Cuomo, but we'll have to see.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting too. Okay, lastly, Hakeem Jeffries, minority leader, also had a somewhat big announcement-ish over the weekend. What did he say?
Yeah, so House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, when Adams announced that he was going to be bowing out of the race, he thanked Adams for his service, praised him for some of his accomplishments, and then also said that he was going to be endorsing before the start of early voting, which is October 25th. So we can expect, I guess, in the next 3 weeks or so, some sort of endorsement, I'm guessing, from House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries. Then Mamdani's campaign, maybe in some sort of way to foreshadowing. Mamdani's campaign says they're also going to be announcing some endorsements here shortly as well in the next week or so.
So are we assuming Hakeem Jeffries is going to endorse the front runner? Is that a reasonable expectation?
It's hard to say. I would say that that's where the breeze is blowing, is that he would likely be endorsing Mamdani. Mamdani did really well in his district. And so I would assume that he's probably going to embrace Mamdani, which would be which would be huge. House Minority Hakeem Jeffries, he's known to be a pretty centrist Democrat. And for him to open up the Democratic Party to a Democratic Socialist will definitely be telling across the nation. So especially as next year they enter the midterm. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what he does. I can't predict it, though.
What if he endorsed Cuomo? I feel like that's unlikely, but what if? Because as you mentioned, he is a centrist. And he is thinking about the health of the party nationally, not just in New York City, not just in his district, in his state. He is thinking about Democrats in places like Georgia and Michigan who are going to be running and who are going to want to keep or win back House seats. Is there a possibility in your mind, just from covering him for as long as you have, that he could endorse Cuomo instead?
I think there's always that possibility. I think his people are keeping their cards pretty close to his chest on exactly what he's going to decide to do. I think that Cuomo, definitely, you're exactly right, a very much a centrist Democrat. I think it does get a little tough because you had a lot of people, including Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, who called on Cuomo to resign when he was governor in 2021. And I would have a hard time, I guess, seeing maybe some leaders going back and endorsing somebody that they did call on to resign as governor in 2021. I also think that he, despite a lot of people supporting him, still remains pretty unpopular. So we'll have to see, though. I think it's all
Yeah.
still up in the air, and we're going to have to see exactly what he decides in the end.
Very good points, Morgan. Thanks so much for joining us. As always, we really appreciate your reporting, and thanks for getting your butt back to New York City yesterday.
It was great seeing you. Thank you.
You too. Okay, we'll be right back with more Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote after this. Welcome back to Battleground NYC, the fight for your vote. And joining me now for the bigger picture is JC Polanco, an attorney and assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. JC, welcome back. It's great to see you again.
So happy to see you, and thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a big day, big news. So Cuomo's theory of the case, as you know, has been that in a two-man race between him and Zohran Mamdani, he wins. Now,
Yes.
it's not quite a two-man race yet. Slee was still in. As Morgan just let us know, he's not planning on going anywhere. So does Adams dropping out help Cuomo at all?
It helps him in some ways. Adams and Governor Cuomo share the same voters. These are centrist Democrats, out-of-borough, blue-collar workers, people that have catapulted their political careers. And they're centrist moderates. These are people that could vote Republican one election, vote Democratic the next. These are the voters of Mayor Adams, and they would absolutely go to former Governor Cuomo. Now, there's always the question: would all of them go? No, not all of them are going to go. Obviously, some are going to go to Sliwa, and some of them are going to go to Mamdani. There's going to be a good number of them that are going to come. And I wonder what would happen if Mayor Adams, it's going to be tough. He made a tough decision this weekend as city mayor, knowing you're not going to win, saying, I'm not going to do this, and drop out. The next step will be to endorse the front runner in the opposition and actually tell your voters, this is the guy that's going to be able to continue my legacy on fighting crime, bringing unemployment down, economic development, and increasing housing in the city. And he's going to do a good job. If he does that, then it's going to even help him out more, because instead of at 8%, people like yourselves, SE, and more journalists are going to pay more attention to the race, which is what Governor Cuomo needs in order to make this two-man race.
So you're confident then that Adams voters become Cuomo voters, and you can see a world in which Eric Adams endorses Andrew Cuomo despite all the bad blood and the barbs, and you can see that happening?
Look, politics makes strange bedfellows. I teach history. Yeah. I can give you about 1,000 of them, but nothing is as strange a bedfellow as J.D. Vance, 1 second calling Trump a Nazi, Hitler, and the next one being his vice president. So give me a break.
Yep.
It's not that crazy. So I can absolutely see it. And you know what? People always ask me, can you see a world in where Curtis Sliwa endorses Andrew Cuomo? And JC, can you see a world in where you look like Josh Allen and become 6'5", 220? No, that's not going to happen, right? I don't think so.
Okay.
But it has happened in the past. So if Curtis Sliwa were to look at the numbers in the next polls, let's say the next polls come out and show him in the low teens, 8, 9, 10s, is there a world where he goes and endorses Andrew Cuomo? It could happen. And if it does, it changes the world politically in New York City. It becomes the news nationally. But he's made it very clear he's not dropping out. He's the elephant in the room. And can Andrew Cuomo win with Curtis Sliwa on the ballot? I don't think so. It becomes very difficult.
Oof. Do you think Cuomo needs to change up his campaign now that there's no Eric Adams to run against? Or do you think he just sort of stays the course and campaigns the way he's been campaigning of late.
Look, Essie, I gotta tell you, if I'm Andrew Cuomo, this whole time he's been running against Mamdani. I don't think he's ever said
Yeah.
a word about Adams. He's just been focusing on Mamdani. So as far as Andrew Cuomo is concerned, his job is to bring some of those Democrats to him. You know Curtis Lee was not leaving this race, so you better go ahead and get some of those Democrats back that Mamdani is walking around and flaunting right now in order for you to have a shot in this election. And it can happen. Look, about 72% of all Democrats stayed home during the primary in June. That's crazy.
Right. There's more gettable voters. I don't know that he needs to peel off Mamdani voters, but he certainly needs to turn out every last Democrat that lives in New York City.
I agree. I'm talking about the polls where they show that Assemblyman Mamdani has about 46, 45%. I think he has to go in there and get some of those Democrats back and get some of the 72% that stayed home to come and support him in November. Because remember, and I want your listeners to remember this, you don't need a majority of the vote. All you need is a plurality. So if he can just chip away, he has a shot. I spoke to Curtis Lee on his camp. They're confident. They believe that there's a shot that if there is a universe where this does happen and Cuomo starts peeling away at the Democrats that didn't come out to vote in June, that there is room for him to win on a plurality.
Like that's a 30, 40 kind of split in Curtis Lee's favor. That would be
33.1, even 33.1, if you think about it. That's what they're hoping on. And he's campaigning hard. You would think that, he's closing down his campaign offices, laying people off. No. Curtis Lee was in it to win it. He's going all out, which is,
opening new offices. Yeah.
Opening up new offices. He's campaigning like it's 1999, right?
Yeah. It's funny, JC, because I've known Curtis a long time too. I lived in New York and he would come on our shows. And he is very serious this go around. I wouldn't have said that for every other, political outing he's had. He sounds serious to me. I believe him when he says, I'm not getting out of this race.
I don't think he is. I think he's going to stay, which is why if the next polls come in and show that Curtis Lee was still in the single digits or in the low teens, he's going to stay. So Andrew Cuomo has to think about, how am I going to win notwithstanding Curtis Lee was still in this race? Forget about him dropping out. That's not going to happen. And I got to say one more thing. If the polls come back and show that Slee was ahead of Cuomo, well, then I consider Cuomo should do the same thing and back out and support Sliwa. So whatever the opposition is to defeat Assemblyman Mamdani and the Democratic Socialists of America.
This race has been so interesting. And I think, actually, even though we just have 30 plus days left, it's about to get even more interesting. Okay, JC, I've got more questions, so don't go anywhere.
Okay.
More Battleground NYC after the break. We're back with more Battleground NYC one more time with the bigger picture is JC Polanco, an attorney and assistant professor at the University of Mount St. Vincent. JC, we know that President Trump wants this to be a race between Cuomo and Mamdani. And we know he was pressuring Eric Adams to drop out. Do you think that New Yorkers see Adams dropping out as somehow the work of Donald Trump and sort of meddling and rigging this election?
I don't think they view it as Donald Trump rigging this election. I think that Donald Trump deep down inside needs Assemblyman Mamdani to win this election. This is going to be the gift that keeps on giving for Republicans nationally. I was a Republican for 20 years. I've been in those rooms making those videos and mail pieces. And I'll tell you, this is the gift. You're giving the Republicans an opportunity for them to campaign in districts that are purple states, purple districts. And they're going to put those videos of Assemblyman Mamdani talking about decriminalizing prostitution and seizing the methods of production. And oh my goodness, the anti-private property stuff on decommodifying housing right on the necks of those purple district Democrats. I think Republicans need this. They want this. And every time we see President Trump go on Twitter or X or anywhere else to blast Assemblyman Mamdani, he knows exactly what he's doing. He wants this to happen. Look, there may be a Speaker Jeffries, but the margins won't be as high as they would. But this is already having an impact in New Jersey's race with Mickey Sherrill. This is already having an impact in the Virginia governor's race. We see it in Michigan. Every purple state is going to pay the price for the short-sighted hubris of all of those Democrats that showed up to a closed party primary and voted for this TikTok sensation to be the Democratic nominee for mayor of New York City.
Okay, I completely agree with you in your reading of the Republican zeal for this candidate. But My question, I'm trying to see how New Yorkers see this. And if you're a New York voter and the president of the United States is dipping his hand into a local election,
Oh
I'm
my God.
just wondering if you think New Yorkers are feeling a little icky
Of course.
about how some of this is going. Like, is Andrew Cuomo working with Donald Trump? And did they pay Eric Adams or offer him a job? Like, I'm just wondering if you think New Yorkers care about that.
Look, there's some New Yorkers that care about conspiracy theories. There's some New Yorkers that see the president meddling in this race and they don't like President Trump. Look, New York
Yeah.
City does not like President Trump. There are
Yeah.
pockets of New York City that likes President Trump, but I put
Mhm.
my last dollar that if we have an election between COVID-19 and President Trump, COVID-19 wins by 5 points. That's how unpopular President Trump is
Yes.
throughout New York City. So
Yes.
President Trump knows this. He's a smart guy. So when he pushes the thumb on this, he knows this is a rallying cry for Mamdani's support. Even some independent Democratic leaners out there are going in to support Mamdani because he's the one that's being targeted by the president. And anything
Yeah.
President Trump does is terrible. So he knows what he's doing, which is my point. He wants there to be Mayor Mamdani. It's why today he says, New York City will get no money from me
Yeah.
if you elect Mamdani, knowing full well
Right.
that the USSR of Western Queens is going to come out in full force when they hear stuff like that and support Assemblyman Mamdani even more. And if you're a Democrat sitting on the fence, this is going to rile you up. And you're going to see that one of your guys is getting attacked by the boogeyman out there in Washington. So he knows what he's doing.
Okay, let's talk about Democrats because we just talked about the Republicans. National Democrats, as you know, have been keeping a very close eye on this race, and we've both discussed how you might see it if you're a Democrat in Michigan or Georgia, right? What do you think they're thinking today with Eric Adams out of the race now? Are they thinking, "Oh, good, Cuomo's got a shot"? Are they thinking, "Okay, this just got a little tougher for Mamdani, our favorite socialist"? You probably talk to more Democrats than I do. You tell me.
I think that they're thinking this is a good thing because the chances of the centrist winning become better. They're not great, but they're better than they were on Friday, right? This
Yeah.
is about anywhere from 9 to 11% of Democrats that of voters in New York City that Eric Adams had in the polls. There's a good chance that a large majority of them are going to go to the former governor. And this is good, they think. And now with
Mhm.
36 days left, they're going to make a big push. And who knows if you could encourage the Democrats that stayed home during the primary, all 72% of Democrats. Now think about that.
Yep.
Two of every three New Yorkers is registered Democrats. 72% of them stayed home. This is crazy.
Yes.
So maybe there's
Yes.
a chance that he's going to excite them to come out and support him in this race and maybe make this an opportunity that is going to shock the world politically.
Yeah, he's got to do that. That's exactly what he's got to do. Okay, before we go, I'm just wondering what you think about the legacy of Eric Adams. He just became a one-term mayor, which is not usual in this town. He was only the second Black mayor to lead New York City. Just before we go, say a little something about what you think Eric Adams is leaving with.
Look, Mayor Adams did a phenomenal job. Crime is down, housing is up, unemployment is down, economic development is great. He would have sailed through re-election had it not been for the mistakes that he made managerially. He hired the wrong people. He brought the people that were loyal to him, kept them around a little too long. Even after they got in trouble, Essie, he still kept them around.
Yeah.
I don't know what
Yeah.
this man was thinking. Dave Chappelle had a skit called When Keeping It Real Goes Wrong. Mayor Adams' entire legacy is when keeping it real goes wrong by keeping these people around too long. So it was the drip. It hurt his character. People view him as corrupt. He was never found guilty, but my goodness, he left the city better than he found it. And that's what his legacy could be if he goes and does the right endorsement during this election.
Well, we'll be keeping an eye on all of it, as you know, and JC, you'll have to come back because, like I said, I think there's just going to be more and more and more sort of world-changing events in this race over the next 36 days. Thanks so much for joining us, JC.
Thanks for having me.
Okay. And thank you for joining us. More Battleground NYC every Monday through Friday. So we'll see you tomorrow.